All right, so let's go back to Germany in the 1930s and 40s. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to a time in history. I'm going to take you back to 1933 Germany. Does anybody know who took over in Germany in 1933? Guy's name was Max Keith. So Max Keith takes over the Coca-Cola, subsidiaries of Germany, the basically the production of Coca-Cola in Germany in 1933. He takes over in 1933. Same time, another guy takes over the political, party of Germany in 1933. Sure, you know who that guy is. So he takes over the Coca-Cola production in Germany in 1933. Well, he was all in on this business. There's never been a more corporate man in probably a long time in the beverage industry than Max Keith, okay? So he takes over and he cares about nothing more than this company. I don't know if it's because he wanted to make money. I don't know if he just was like addicted to his job. I don't know what it was. But my man, Max Keith, I shouldn't say my man, but Max Keith was all the way in. And he started seeing the rise of this political party, right? It was called the Nazi Party, okay? The Nazi Party. I'm going to do this because I don't want to get censored online, okay? And so this party comes to power. And Max Keith is seeing that this party is slowly and then rapidly consolidating and making a very, very hardline stance as a governing body and is making sure everyone follows in line, okay? Now, we're not going to talk about all the other shit. We're just going to stick with this story right now, okay? So, what does he do? He starts noticing, okay, that they are taking over control. And so what does Max Keith do with Coca-Cola? He starts advertising at their rallies. That's right. He starts advertising at their rallies. It's Coca-Cola because he's got to bump up sales, right? So he goes and he starts advertising them. He even builds an exhibit at the 1937 Nazi Industrial Fair. The 1937 Industrial Fair. He does an exhibit for them. Well, guess what? 1938, 1939 roll around. And this party and their military start doing some how do we put this? Start taking little trips into other countries. And they start pushing in and start taking over countries, including Poland and France and Netherlands and areas like there. They start doing that. And old Keith follows right behind those tanks. And he takes over the production of all of those production plants in those countries. Okay, he's expanding his business. He is saying, all right, I got an opportunity here to expand my Coca-Cola empire over here. All right, moving on. We're going to keep going here because we got to get to the meat and potatoes of this, okay? So he follows and takes over. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Stocky, wait a second. Wasn't Coca-Cola owned by a company, a conglomerate headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, United States? Yeah, they were. Well, did they say anything to him to stop him? Nah, fuck no, they didn't. Why would they? Why would they? They could just pretend like they don't know what's going on. They're just, they're making sales. They're like, all right, cool, we're expanding our footprint and shit like that. This guy's a go-getter, I guess, whatever, we'll just be quiet about it. So there you go. Guess what? 1936, by the way, Coca-Cola, yeah, they sponsored the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin. They even made banners where the Coca-Cola and the fucking swastika were on the same fucking flag. It's true story history, okay? So there you go. Coca-Cola doesn't talk about it. They're kind of like we're on the, hey, let's just let it happen kind of thing, okay? So this happens. Now, after printing all that, so this is happening. This is going on. Well, something happens in 1941. Anybody know what happens on December 7th, 1941? Yeah, we're not going to get into that video again, but Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. That's right, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. They awoke the sleeping giant, okay? Nobody wanted the United States to join that fucking war. Japan, Germany, and Italy. Well, Italy basically was one of the reasons that Germany lost as fast as they did. We did a whole whiteboard on that, which pissed a lot of Italians off, but they were so incompetent that they actually did more to damage Germany than anybody. But yeah, so 1941, December 7th. Hey, listen, it's Pearl Harbor time. Okay, God, that sounded really bad. Let's try that again. Pearl Harbor happens. The United States joins the war. Well, guess what? The United States is now the big dog in the fight. And what do they say? We're signing a new law. It's called the Trading with the Enemies Act. And Trading with the Enemy Act basically shuts down any type of imports. It's like one of the first international major sanctions and embargoes and shit like that were done directly to them, right? And so they basically said, if you are an enemy of us, if you trade with them, you are an enemy of us. You're trading with the enemy, we consider you either an enemy or a friend of the enemy. Now, let's not talk about Sweden again. The Sweden who literally gave Germany the iron that they needed to keep their military going and then help them with some other shit. That's another video I did if you want to find out how Sweden actually helped the Nazis significantly more than anybody else. You can watch that video as well. So the Trading with the Enemy Act happens. What does that do? That shuts down syrup. So all the syrup that Coca-Cola, these production plants in Germany are getting, shuts down, goes to zero. They're not getting any more. Coca-Cola production in Germany completely stops. Well, guess what? They have all these warehouses. They have all these factories, 3,000 employees, and no syrup. Well, Hitler looks at this and says, hey, I could use those factories for military production. I mean, they're not keeping jobs. They're not keeping the economy going. They're not giving soda to people to keep them happy, whatever like that. Why don't I just use these? Well, guess what? He goes to Keith and he says, listen, I want you to join the Nazi party. And Max Keith actually does not join the Nazi party. He does not join the party. He refuses to join the party. Okay, he refuses. I don't know what's going on here. But apparently, he was more about making money and not about the politics of it. But somehow, nothing happens to him. So Hitler and the Nazi party say, okay, well, if you don't join the party, we want members of the party on your board. He refuses as well. I don't know why, but nothing bad happened to him. Okay, it didn't. I don't know why. So what happens is he basically convinces them or says to them that, listen, I can do something else, or I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't on the fucking factory floor. But so now that he's not been murked, he's not been sent to a camp, he's not been conscripted, he goes back to the drawing board. And he goes to his factories and he says, all right, here's the thing. And he goes to his chemists and his scientists. He says, here's the thing. We got to get production going. We don't have syrup. We can't make Coca-Cola. I want you to figure something out. And he basically develops a new drink out of garbage. Wait for it. He goes to his chemist and he says, hey, listen, I need you to take these leftover scraps and waste, okay? I want you to take whey from cheese, right? The fucking byproduct of cheese processing. He goes, I want you to take some whey. Why not? That's on there's some scraps over there. Oh, by the way, when you clean out that machine that they use to make apple ciders, there's a bunch of fucking apple pulp left over. Oh, cool, that's nice. And you know how we have cut off the outside of sugar beets before they make it and pickle them and shit? Yeah, sugar beet scraps. So basically all of these leftover fucking scraps and garbage ingredients. And he goes and he says, hey, I need you to make this. And he's quoted as telling his scientists and chemists, I need you to use the leftovers of the leftovers. The leftovers of the leftovers. We need something. I need you to make something. Okay, make something happen. So he does this, and he tells the team, I need you to use your imagination. Use your imagination, because let me tell you something, you ain't using anything else. Well, guess what? Does anybody know what use your imagination, the German word for that is? What's a German word for use your imagination? Fantasy, kind of thing like that. And a salesman, there's a guy. He's one of the salesmen, a fucking German salesman. He just yells out, Fanta. Fanta. And so they literally, and they're like, well, fuck, that's the best we got. Let's go with it. Let's fucking go with it. Fanta. Let's just do it. All right, let's just do it. Fuck it. Make it sound fun, right? People don't know what's inside of this, but we're just going to go with it. And they create this drink, and this drink is nasty, okay? This shit is cloudy, okay? It's very thin. There's almost no fruit flavor. It's just like this, but it's carbonated. A little bit. I mean, if you put carbonated water in it at the time, they didn't have a lot of it, but it was something. And when they first got it, the Germans didn't even drink it. Most Germans bought Fanta at the time as a supplement to sweeten their soup since sugar was being rationed. You couldn't get sugar. Everything was being rationed, just like in the United States, but hardcore in Germany. You couldn't get sugar. And you had to make these nasty soups because you had to use leftovers of whatever was available because everything was being rationed. And you needed to fucking sweeten it up a little bit. So what did they do? They went and got the Fanta, which is made out of all these scraps that have natural sugars in them. And they used that. They sold 3 million cases in 1943. 3 million cases of Fanta, okay? In 1943. And most of it was just because people were using it to sweeten it as an alternative to sugar. And the crazy thing is that all of his plants stayed open, did not get turned over to the war machine, and every single one of those employees stayed employed. So it kind of actually hurt the military, the German military at the time, because less production, less soldiers, in a way. Now, the crazy thing was, remember Atlanta, their headquarters, right? The Coca-Cola headquarters? They knew about this going on. Like, they had no idea about Fanta. They had no idea about Fanta at the time. They knew he was still going over there and something was happening. But they didn't know what. They didn't know, is he saving the company? Is he handing it over to Hitler? What is this guy doing? But they didn't want to get involved because they're like, hey, listen, this is not a good look, right? Like, we should be coming in and like condoning this and shutting it down. But what if they win? What if there's a ceasefire? What if they kind of, it's 1943. They're still doing pretty, we don't want to pick the wrong side. We'll just keep our operation. They get a little shady shit going on over there, okay? So they just kind of let shit happen. Then 1945, Germany surrenders. After Hitler and his SS guard make their way over to Argentina, they, and then they declare, the United States and the Allies could declare victory, okay, with the Soviets and the West coming in. And then when Germany officially lost, Max Keith turned everything over to Coke. They turned everything over to Coke, including Fanta, the recipe, and every dime of profits they made during the war. Now, I don't know if it's because he didn't want to get tried, he didn't want to be accused of anything. I don't know if this was his way of buying himself out. Maybe he was just a student of business and cared nothing but the survivability of the company and his namesake and wanted to make sure that they got it. I don't know. I mean, And Coca-Cola got it, and they decided to continue to tweak it until they got the recipe of what today is Fanta. So the next time you get a Fanta, I want you to know two things. That's a drink that started from scraps and garbage, swept up from a factory floor. That's number one. Number two, if you drink Fanta, you support Nazis. Okay, that's not true. But no, this is the true story of Fanta. This is the true story of Fanta. I'm telling you, we did the whole thing of the origin of Taco Bell the other day. That's a joke. Please don't sue me, Coke, okay? I don't want Jim Cramer to sue me. I don't want fucking Taco Bell to sue me. These are historical facts. This is the actual story of Fanta. This is the actual story of Fanta. Again, I give you this useless knowledge so that you can then regurgitate it at the worst possible fucking time when nobody wants to hear about it, and everyone's gonna think you're that fucking dude who just can't stop with the weird fucking knowledge and facts and shit. Like, hey bro, can we just have a drink? I don't need to know about the fact that this was made from a bunch of fucking scraps when Nazi Germany doing this shit and soup and Hitler and Argent. I don't need all that, bro. Just dude, I'm getting you a Sprite next time. Hey, did you know about Sprite? Man, fuck you, bro. We're not inviting you anymore. But yeah, I love to give you guys these little nuggets of corporate history. The origin of companies oftentimes and brands is sometimes very interesting. It's like a wild, like you have no idea how it developed. You didn't want to know, but now you do. And so it's just a kind of a crazy story that got me thinking about this, because it was like, hey, because the Fanta was out the other day, and somebody was talking about Coca-Cola today. It just reminded me, like, this is a story. This is how it was. You probably had no idea when you drink a Fanta that this is the origin story of it. Now, you might say to yourself, Stucky, what about Max Keith? Was he or was he not? Was he this? Was he that? I don't fucking know. I don't know. Nobody's going to know. Okay, a lot of weird shit happened. But also remember that Operation Paperclip, right? Like a lot of those guys, the worst of the worst guys at the SS over there, got forgiven as long as they came over here and helped us out. Who do you think started NASA? That's right. Unit 731, which I did a whole whiteboard on that never became a video. Those guys were forgiven as long as they turned over the data to the United States. So, I'm not here to tell you who's right, who's wrong, who's this. But hey, there you go. That is your story of Fanta, ladies and gentlemen.